Hello and a very warm welcome to another edition of World Panorama, the only show that gives you a 360-degree view of the biggest international news of the week. I'm Sana Khan. This week, we bring you a report on the latest in the crisis in Ukraine, also give you a sense of what the situation is all about. That's our top story. Now, the government of President Viktor Yanukovych announced an agreement on Friday to end days of bloodshed after all-night talks with protesters, Russian representatives and the foreign ministers of Germany, Poland and France. A breakthrough peace deal for Ukraine halted 2 days of violence that had turned down the center of capital into a war zone that killed 77 people, bringing sweeping political change that met many demands of pro-European opposition. Russian-backed President Viktor Yanukovych agreed to give up powers, hold up early elections and form a government of national unity. Parliament voted for change to the legal code that could see the release of Yanukovych's jailed rival, opposition leader Yulia Tymoshenko. But President Yanukovych's dramatic decision to hold early elections and form a new unity government while granting amnesty for those involved in the violence was met with skepticism or even hostility by nearly 40,000 protesters who gathered on central Kyiv's main square, many of them frustrated the leader was not stepping down. So in this edition, we get you a detailed insight into the crisis that erupted in Ukraine. I have with me Nivedita Das Kundu. She is an eminent foreign political analyst joining me on the show for the very first time. I welcome you, ma'am, on the show. But before we start talking, let's have a look at this report. Ukraine was still jittery in one of the bloodiest days since the crisis erupted. After 48 hours in which the fate of Ukraine was fought out in the square, with at least 75 people killed, the Russian-backed Yanukovych government was rapidly losing support and faced the risk of civil war or even a breakup of the sprawling country of 46 million.
I'm deeply saddened by the tragic turn of events in Ukraine, particularly yesterday and today, where almost more than 100 people have been killed already through this renewed violence.
I condemn the outrageous bloodshed in Ukraine. I urge all parties to stop this tragic spiral of violence. And the Ukrainian government has a special responsibility to ensure that the armed forces do not get involved in this political crisis. The Ukrainian military and special forces should not turn on the people of Ukraine. That would have severe consequences for our partnership with Ukraine. The only way forward is dialogue, so we welcome all efforts to find a peaceful solution.
A deal designed to end Ukraine's long-running crisis was reached Friday after all-night negotiations that included European and Russian mediators. But the opposition did not immediately confirm an agreement had been reached, and diplomatic sources described talks brokered by 3 European Union ministers as very difficult.
We have met President Yanukovych during 5 hours. We have met the opposition during several hours. We have tried to examine different elements, how to cease the violence, which is necessary to cease violence. What about a new government, new elections, and Europe has taken sanctions today, and we shall go back to meet with the president right now during this night and with the opposition. But at the moment when I speak in the name of my colleagues in France, it's not possible to say that we have found a solution. We hope to find a solution, but the situation remains very difficult.
Right now is the question of negotiation. Right now we have some proposal, and let's see. Let's see. I hope tonight we have some result. Not yet. Sorry, no commenter. I'm sorry, no commenter, because right now I doesn't have to. No clear decision. And decision take the president, and after that we can see.
Though the EU agreed to impose sanctions on Ukrainians with blood on their hands, it left the door open to a political deal. Ukraine's embattled President Yanukovych appeared ready to concede to one of the protesters' main demand by suggesting to visit EU dignitaries that he may be ready to hold early elections.
The President and other senior members of this administration alluded yesterday to the fact that there were a range of tools that could be used by the administration to hold accountable those who have either ordered or are responsible for the violence that's being perpetrated by the Ukrainian government against peaceful protesters. So there are a range of options that are available, and it is fair to say that a range of options is being actively considered at the White House.
Yanukovych and the opposition protesters are locked in a battle over the identity of Ukraine, a nation of 46 million that has divided loyalties between Russia and the West. Parts of the country, mostly in its western cities, are in open revolt against Yanukovych's central government, while many in eastern Ukraine back the president and favor strong ties with Russia, their former Soviet ruler. Protesters across the country are also upset over corruption in Ukraine, the lack of democratic rights and the country's ailing economy, which just barely avoided bankruptcy with a $15 billion aid infusion from Russia. All right, Ms. Kundu, let me start by asking you, what do you think about this deal that we are talking about here, so to speak, between Yanukovych and the opposition? Do you think, it's really going to work out and make some difference, or are we expecting some more changes, some more radical decisions?
Well, first of all, I would like to say the situation today in Ukraine is very critical and grim, and the violence is rampant. Yeah. So at least this was very much needed to stop this violence, which is killing so many people for last 3 months almost. This violent protest is going on. Initially it was not that violent, peaceful, but gradually it aggravated. So this deal, we hope that some kind of consolation will come. But yes, there would be an agreement with the total population, because the population is divided. The whole of Ukraine, if you see the consent, the decisions, they are divided between the West and the East. Right. And their move, that which they are trying to move towards this European Union, and all this agitation started, if you recall, from the November, when in Vilnius, President Yanukovych did not sign the European Union agreement for the trade along with Ukraine and the European countries. So that was the major drawback when
that really Ukraine ignited
this, because if you see that Ukrainians did not sign for many persuasion also the Eurasian Customs Union, which was between Belarus, Kazakhstan and Russia. So they were inviting them, and they have not been signing, and they were hoping that probably by signing this agreement they will move more towards European Union, which was very disappointing for the population of the Ukraine, and mainly population of the Western Ukraine, consisting
of... So it's very important for our viewers to also understand why we are talking about these divisions between East and West of Ukraine. Where does Moscow come into picture, and why is Barack Obama going on making statements directing towards Vladimir Putin? If you can just help our viewers understand in a nutshell, like what's happening, what has been the history, and why is there such a deep divide?
Well, if you see, since 1991, when the Ukraine was independent, since then, if you recall, since then this Western move towards West was very, very close to Ukrainians' heart, and that was mainly in the Western part. But in Eastern part of Ukraine, there is a huge Russian population living, and they are very much pro-Russian government. So this divide has been consistent for so many years. Then we saw this 2004 Orange Revolution, in which Yushchenko, President Yushchenko came up with the Western support. But one has to, this Ukrainian population has to look that when Yushchenko came with the Western support, did he manage to solve the problems of the Ukraine? No, he could not. Then he had to go back. And then Yanukovych came. But here again we have to see that what the population, people of this country wants. So here they have to maintain a balance between the West and the Russia, because Russia is anyway very important for them. That is just their immediate neighbors. They are getting oil and gas from Russia, which is extremely important for them. Today you see the situation in Ukraine is very grim. I have friends living there, and I know that they are suffering from lack of electricity, they are suffering from lack of petrol, they are suffering from lack of food, shortage of huge food shortages coming up. So they have to understand what is actually going to benefit them, because these external powers are going to come, and whether these external powers are going to solve their problems, how much, to what extent. But yes, definitely of late we have seen that Yanukovych became very, very power hungry. He changed the constitution, and then Yulia Tymoshenko, who was a major rival group and pro-Western group, she was sent to jail.
In fact, I was going to ask you what happens to that now. You know, will she be released?
Yes, of course. That is what the deal is talking about, that she will be released. She is already in the jail for last 2 years, and 7 years term has been given to her. So she will be released. So here we have to see that when the presidential election is going to take place, which has been already decided that it has to take place by the end of December. So here we have to see that, I mean, she is also going to be part of the election campaign, and she is also going to be a candidate, one of the candidates. And her popularity is also quite a lot in Ukraine. So here there will be again the fight, again the confusion will remain. But yes, we have to see that the violence ends immediately. The population of Kyiv and other eastern part, like Kharkov, they
realize that whatever has to be done has to be for their economic benefit as well. But
political stability is very important, and security concerns.
But economically speaking, what are the sectors which are the backbone of Ukraine? Obviously, it's not realized its full potential. We hear that it's really rich as far as the agricultural land is concerned. Can you highlight some of the other points that perhaps Ukraine can work on and strengthen its economy?
Oh yes, of course. Ukraine is a very rich country, and during the Soviet time, if you recall, these are the two countries like Ukraine and Russia who were actually leading the Soviet Union, and Ukraine was called the breadbasket of the whole Soviet Union. They have a rich soil, black soil, and so they can definitely enrich those potentials. They have a good defense industry, and that also they can enrich. So they have a lot of potential, and that is why probably both Western countries as well as Russia wants to have a hegemony over this region. Nobody wants to lose their hold in this region because of its geopolitical location, because of its potential, and of course in Ukraine that we have seen that most of the Ukrainian people either Russian origin or European origin. Poland is bordering them, Black Sea is on their feet. So you can see that possibly that country has got a lot of potential, and that is what Ukrainian people has to understand, that what is good for them, and they have to look into that, and external powers will try to come and disturb, but what is the benefit of the nation, that people should decide.
All right, and they have time till December when the next elections are due. Now, we are talking about this agreement. Let's go back to it. Now, it has been termed as a very, very fragile agreement, and signing it too was termed as very, very difficult. But there's another point in it which says that Ukraine returns with this agreement to the constitution that was there in 2004. So, explain to us what does that mean? What is the difference between the constitution that is there now, and why are they going back to that 2004 constitution?
Well, actually, when President Yanukovych got elected, he changed the constitution as per his requirement, and they were saying it was very much pro-Russian. So that is where the certain section of the Ukrainian people, they disagreed on this. And so they wanted it back because in 2004, when Yushchenko came to power, they formulated this constitution, and as per that, they had a lot of inclination towards moving towards European Union. They also wanted to get NATO membership, and that was also being kind of promised to them. And we also feel that yes, that might happen, because in the European Union membership they might get, but a lot of changes were made, and it was mainly said that it was very much pro-Russian constitution, pro-Russian government, and Yanukovych was favoring Russia. So that is where the differences came up, and the anti-government this revolution came up in the Maidan Square.
So what do we see now? Because Vladimir Putin, some analysts say, will be seeing this as a defeat for himself, which in reality he really shouldn't be thinking it that way. And you have Barack Obama's statement very clearly saying that Ukraine is not a chessboard game as such, so we shouldn't be taking it like that. So gauging Vladimir Putin's reaction, will Moscow be intervening now at this stage, or will it sit back and watch how things play out?
Well, it will not intervene very directly, but it has already stopped a lot of trade with Ukraine, because Ukraine's half of the trade was taking place with Russia. They have stopped. Similarly, gas, oil and gas, which is one of the major thing, and major.
So will we see more sanctions now on Ukraine?
Yes, we will see that gradually. They will definitely gradually. It happened earlier also. They used to stop the gas pipelines, and the taps used to be closed. So that used to happen. So we will probably be seeing some more such things. But yes, of course. Ukraine going away will be definitely quite a loss for Russia, because Russia has already lost one of its very close neighbors in the Europe is the Baltic states, and they will not let this happen to Ukraine anymore. So and also they wanted to bring them to the Eurasian Customs Union, which would have been a great benefit for all these regional countries. So that is also did not happen. So definitely I would say that will be a loss, but Vladimir Putin will take a lot of strong steps to curb this.
Right, but not very aggressively and directly, if we were to say, right?
Yeah, but yes, if they are stopping the oil and gas flow, that is going to
impact the economy in a very big way. Absolutely, but the important point here is to control the violence that's going on. We believe that it's already under control to some extent after the signing of the deal. Thank you so much, ma'am, for coming on the show and sharing your thoughts with us. It was a pleasure having you. With that, we take a very short break. Lots more in store up ahead. Stay tuned for all the action from the Sochi Winter Games. We bring you the winning moments ahead. You're watching World Panorama. Now, much else has been unfolding around the world. Here's a quick wrap of the other international news of the week.
A strong storm system packing damaging winds, dense fog and heavy snow pelted the central part of the United States, causing traffic accidents, traffic jams and loss of power. Dense fog caused a roughly 20 vehicle crash during rush hour on the northbound Interstate 57 in Willie County, Illinois, briefly closing the highway. The National Weather Service issued blizzard and winter storm warnings for parts of Wisconsin, Minnesota and Iowa through Friday morning. Chinese Premier Li Keqiang met with visiting Pakistani President Mamnoon Hussain on Thursday to discuss ways to expand friendship between the two countries. Li said Chinese President Xi Jinping and President Hussain had reached an important consensus on deepening the bilateral relations during a meeting on Wednesday. China is willing to reinforce the traditional friendship and bilateral relations with Pakistan and to meet challenges and realize common development. A day after 6 world powers and Iran had substantive talks in pursuit of a final settlement on Tehran's contested nuclear program, the parties sat down for a third day of meetings in Vienna on February 20th. EU Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton and Iranian Foreign Minister and the head of his country's delegation Mohammad Javad Zarif met at the United Nations. The sides remain far apart on how to resolve the nuclear dispute, and both Iran and the United States, a key player in the talks, have publicly stated it may not be possible to reach a final agreement. More than 100 South Koreans headed for the Democratic People's Republic of Korea on Thursday morning to meet their long-separated relatives at the Mount Kumgang scenic spot. Accompanied by their family members, 82 elderly South Koreans departed around 8 in the morning from a resort hotel in the South Korean east coastal city of Sokcho. US President Barack Obama on Wednesday said that the current crisis in Ukraine and Syria are an expression of the aspirations of people in those two countries, not a reflection of difficulties between the United States and Russia. Obama, speaking at a news conference that ended a North American summit, said the US approach is not to see these as some Cold War chessboard in which we are in competition with Russia. United Nations Special Rapporteur Thomas Oeja Quintana voiced concerns over allegations of serious human rights violations in Myanmar. He made the comments at a news conference in the capital Yangon as he wrapped up a 6-day tour of conflict areas in Rakhine State, following the death of a policeman on January 13, which sparked what was described as revenge killings of at least 40 Rohingya Muslims by Buddhist mobs in the western state. Myanmar President Thein Sein appointed a 10-member commission to investigate.
Shifting gears, time to bring you up to speed with all the sports news that you might have missed this week. Here's all the sports action.
American Ted Ligety survived a scare to win gold in the men's giant slalom, holding off two charging Frenchmen for his first Olympic title in the discipline he dominates. Ligety's victory gave the US its first alpine skiing gold of these games, while France celebrated its first medals of any color on the slopes of Rosa Couture. American-born Vic Wild won the men's parallel giant slalom gold medal for Russia just minutes after his wife Elena Zavarzina won bronze in the women's event at the Sochi Olympics. Patrizia Kume's victory over Tomoka Takuechi of Japan in the women's final to win gold for Switzerland was inevitably overshadowed as a partisan crowd celebrated Russia's first snowboard Olympic title. Norway cruised to victory in the inaugural Olympic biathlon mixed relay in a race in which they were barely threatened. The gold was a record 13th Winter Olympic medal and joint record 8th Olympic title for Ole Einar John Dalan, who partnered Emil Hegle Svensson, Tyrell Eckhoff and Tora Berger to victory. Czech skater Martina Sablikova downed the Dutch by successfully defending the women's 5,000 meter speed skating title. Sablikova clocked 6 minutes 51.54 seconds for her 12.5 laps to edge Irene Wust of Netherlands into the silver medal position by 2.74 seconds.
Time now for all the very latest news from the world of movies, music and lifestyle. Here's our entertainment wrap. The harrowing drama 12 Years a Slave won the Best Film Award at Britain's top movie owners on cementing its status as favourite for the Oscars next month. But it was the space thriller Gravity that claimed the biggest trophy haul. 12 Years a Slave by British director Steve McQueen with Hollywood's Brad Pitt as a producer had been tipped as the night's major winner and also won Best Actor for Chiwetel Ejiofor as a man tricked and sold into slavery in the pre-Civil War United States. But Gravity, starring Sandra Bullock and George Clooney, took home prizes from its 11 nominations, including the Best Director prize for Mexican Alfonso Cuarón and awards for cinematography and outstanding British film. The Best Actress award went to Australian Kate Blanchett for playing a riches-to-rags socialite in Woody Allen's tragic comedy Blue Jasmine. She beat Judi Dench, Amy Adams from American Hustle, Emma Thompson in Saving Mr. Banks and Bullock in Gravity. Arctic Monkeys dominated the Brit Awards 2014, taking home both the British Group and MasterCard British Album of the Year. David Bowie, favoured for the night's big award, took British male solo artist instead, sending supermodel Kate Moss to accept on his behalf. Other notable wins: Lorde for International Female Artist, Ellie Goulding for British Female Artist, Daft Punk for International Group and Bruno Mars for International Male Artist. Jimmy Fallon debuted as the new host of NBC's The Tonight Show Monday night. The 39-year-old takes over reins from Jay Leno, who took over the show from Johnny Carson in 1992. Fallon said he is expected to keep the show similar to his late-night program, which he hosted since 2009. Britain's Prince Harry went to a track day at the Goodwood Motor Circuit to raise awareness for one of his charities. He met soldiers supported by Endeavour Fund, a charity that works to help injured servicemen and women. The fund creates opportunities for injured soldiers to rediscover their self-belief and fighting spirit through physical challenges. Skin was in at Gucci's Autumn-Winter 2014-15 collection in Milan as creative director seemed to delve into the fashion house's origins as a leather goods company. Skinny leather trousers came in shades from powder blue to tobacco. Leather shirts bore ruffle details and tailored sleeveless dresses featured leather panels in the front. Actress Salma Hayek sat in the front row with her husband François-Henri Pinault, head of the French luxury group Kering, which owns the Italian brand. That's all we have for you in this edition of World Panorama. See you next week, same time with more international news. Till then, you can follow us on Facebook and Twitter. As I sign off, take a look at the world-famous 11th century tradition, the Venice Carnival. This carnival, being a pre-Lent festival, means farewell to meat and is celebrated throughout Italy. This is me, Sana Khan, signing off.